All right, let's pull back the curtain on the world of high finance and talk about one of the most important jobs out there. We're going to demystify it all. So let's just dive right in. What exactly is a portfolio manager? I mean, seriously, have you ever stopped to think about it? There are literally trillions of dollars zipping around the global economy at any given moment. But who's actually at the wheel? Who's making the call on where all that money ends up? Well, a huge part of that answer is the portfolio manager. Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we'll nail down who this person is, the ultimate decision maker. Then we'll go beyond just buying and selling to see what the job really entails. After that, we'll get into the two sides of their skill set, the art and the science of it all, before we put it all together in the final equation. So first things first, let's talk about the most fundamental part of this role. They are, at the end of the day, the ultimate decision maker. And to really get what they do, we have to start with what they're actually responsible for. So here's the official definition, but let's break down what it really means. A portfolio manager is constantly walking this tightrope. On one hand, they're trying to grow the money, maximize value. That's the offense. But on the other hand, they have to protect it, manage the risk. That's the defense. And they have to do all of that while sticking to the game plan their client has set out. And that's really the key thing to understand here. They've got a whole team of brilliant analysts and researchers feeding them information, but the portfolio manager, they're the one who makes the final call. The buck, quite literally, stops with them. Now, it's easy to think this job is just buy low, sell high, right? But it is so much more than that. It's not just a series of random trades. It's a constant strategic cycle that's really built on four main pillars. So it all starts with the investment strategy. This is the blueprint, right? What's our philosophy and where we're going to put the money. Then comes the detective work, due diligence and analysis. This is where they dig deep, research companies, and build a rock-solid case for an investment. All along the way, there's constant risk management, always on the lookout for threats, protecting the portfolio from nasty surprises. And finally, and this is crucial, there's performance reporting. They have to be able to explain what they did, why they did it, and how it turned out to the people whose money they're managing. Okay, and this is where it gets really interesting, The skills you need for this job. It's not enough to just be a numbers genius. To be truly successful, a portfolio manager needs this unique combination of two totally different types of abilities. You can really think of it as hard skills versus soft skills. The hard skills, that's the science. These are the technical, measurable things you can learn from a textbook. They're the absolute foundation. But then you have the soft skills, and that's the art. This is all about judgment, about people, and it's what separates the good managers from the truly legendary ones. So let's pop the hood on this toolkit, shall we? Let's take a closer look at what's actually inside. And we'll start with the science, the technical skills that every single manager has to have, no exceptions. These hard skills are completely non-negotiable. You've got to have expert-level financial modeling chops to turn a story into numbers. You need statistical analysis to find the signal in all the noise. You need a deep, almost obsessive knowledge of financial markets. And of course, you need real-deal expertise in risk management. These are the absolute table stakes to even play the game. Let me give you a super concrete example. A discounted cash flow model, or DCF. This is a classic hard skill tool. It's basically a method for figuring out what an investment is worth today by predicting all the cash it's going to produce in the future and then pulling that value back to the present. It's pure financial science. The catch? The whole thing relies on making smart guesses about the future. But here's the thing. All the technical tools in the world won't get you to the top. That's only half the story. To really win, a manager has to master the art of the job. And these next skills, this is what makes all the difference. We're talking about the human element here. Things like being able to communicate a really complex idea simply and clearly, having the discipline and emotional control to stay cool when everyone else is panicking, the strategic mind to see trends before they happen, and, well, the guts to make a big decision and own it. Let's just double-click on this one for a second. Discipline over emotion. It sounds easy, right? But imagine the entire market is in a free fall and every instinct in your body is screaming, sell, get out. The best managers can silence that voice, stick to their process, and avoid making huge mistakes driven by fear or by greed on the way up. And that discipline is exactly what allows them to see the bigger picture. It's about being able to step back from the day-to-day chaos and the flashing numbers on the screen. It's about connecting the dots and figuring out how big global trends might impact their investments months or even years down the road. So we've looked at the art, we've looked at the science. Let's put all these pieces together. What is the final equation? What does this all add up to for a successful portfolio manager? It really boils down to this. Your hard skills, the science, they tell you what to do. They give you the tools, the analysis, but it's the soft skills, the art, that tell you how to do it, and maybe even more importantly, when to do it. You absolutely need both. One without the other is like having a race car with no driver. And that leaves us with this big, central question to think about. In a world that's just drowning in data and analytics, what's the real secret sauce? Is it the data itself, or is it the very human discipline to use that data wisely? Something to chew on. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.